What is going on, guys? Jack here from GamerscoreTutorials, bringing you a LASO playthrough on Pillar of Autumn. This is the first level of Halo CE, and what we're basically going to do is we're going to try and do this level on LASO difficulty, which means there are 12 skulls, and it's on legendary difficulty. Now, the skulls that you actually have to be careful of, I guess, are the Black Eye Skull, which you have to use your melee to get your shields back. Iron Skull, which if you actually die, you have to restart the level, but I'm going to give you a quick, handy tip on how to get past that bit in a minute. And Grunt Birthday Party and Grunt Funeral. Now, Grunt Birthday Party is where you actually headshot the grunts, and then the whole little confetti comes out of their heads. But, of course, the Grunt Funeral is after that, and that pretty much, explodes the grunts. You can see the explosion right there in the back. That was a grunt dying, okay? And the other skull is the Boom Skull, I think it's called. And that's when everything has a ×2 radius of explosions. Like, if you were to throw a grenade, or if they were to throw a grenade, or if a grunt dies, then everything just gets a bigger blast radius like this. I am freaking out because there are a lot of explosions everywhere. And of course, one of my Marines decided to throw a grenade as well, and causes a chain reaction you wouldn't believe. So what I'm actually doing here is playing in old graphics, because if you play in old graphics, the frame rate won't drop as rapidly, because with all the explosions, everything's going to be really laggy and that sort of thing. So what you need to do is actually do this in old graphics, so that the new graphics don't pick up all the explosions, and the frame rate drops and everything goes all laggy. So that's pretty much one of the tips. Another tip is with your melee, when you're actually meleeing, do not melee grunts twice. If you melee a grunt twice, they die, you're caught in an explosion, and you're pretty much going to have to restart everything. So when you're doing your melee, make sure you melee a grunt once instead of twice. And when you're actually meleeing an elite, that's when you want to get your shields back. When you're actually meleeing an elite, that's when you want to get your shields back. So this elite here has got his back turned to me, so I make the opportunity and assassinate him in the back. And of course, as soon as you see a grunt about to hit the floor, or you hear the screaming children go, "Yay!" that's when you actually book it out of there. Make sure you do not get caught in the radius of the explosion, because you will either die or get close to death. So right here, I try and take out this grunt, but it decides not to happen. He decides to chuck a grenade at me, and look at this. You see that Marine? That Marine got caught in the explosion of the radius, and of course my controller decides to disconnect, and it decided to die on me. So I was like, okay, I'm now caught in a battle between two elites, and 2 grunts just died. So I was panicking at this point. Luckily I did not die. And another tip. When you're in the death animation, because let's be honest, I've died so many times during this playthrough. So when you actually die, when you're actually in the death animation, I'm talking about, when you actually see Master Chief's body in third person, you want to hit start and go to save and quit, and then that's going to exit you out of the menus and then into the playlist menu, or the campaign menu. And what you want to do is just go to resume campaign, or resume playlist. And that's what's going to do, is that it's going to actually start you from the previous checkpoint instead of the beginning of the mission. Now that is really, really handy, because you will die a lot, and it's true, you will die a lot. So look, explosions happening in the background. You want to be careful of explosions, and see, look at that. Grunt decides to die and give me a little present of actually blowing up in my face. So yeah, you want to be really, you want to be really good with your headshots when you're attempting LASO, really, because you want to be conservative of your ammo, and you want to also be cautious of your surroundings. You want to optimize certain routes that you want to take. You want to optimize your melee, and look at that Marine died because of grenades and explosions everywhere. So look, grunts exploding everywhere. There goes another one. So basically, you want to optimize your headshots, your routes, your melees. You want to be pretty much perfect with your melee hits when it comes to hitting elites. And of course we go in here for an overshield, because overshields are our new best friend as well as melees, because melees and overshields, they're your best friends in this. If you see pixelation like that, I am sorry. My capture card's bitrate decided to freak out on me and pretty much get that pixelated effect, so I am sorry. Of course, just hiding behind this box, picking out headshots, and we're using the grunts to our advantage when we're playing on LASO, because what the grunts will do is when they actually explode, they tend to take out the elites and anything else that surrounds them with that ×2 radius of explosions. So we pretty much want the grunts to help us out as much as we can. Take them out with a headshot, and then in the background you'll hear like elites or other grunts like screaming and like in agony, like dying. So that's your cue to know when they're actually dying. So I go back here to actually get another overshield, because it will be really handy for this next part that's coming up with the stairs, like going up to the next floor, and then there's like a whole ton of like grunts and elites as well. So this overshield will be pretty handy in the coming section. So what actually I decided to do here was magically go up the stairs somehow and head to the right, because I found out that on the right hand side you don't tend to get as hit as much as you were to go to the left, because if you were to go to the left you will be dealing with a whole bunch of elites and grunts, and you don't want that. And of course my game capture decided to freak out a lot there, and we're going to just continue headshotting grunts and make sure that they actually explode everything else around them. So this next part, it's very dark, so if you see your reticle go red, you just want to start shooting whatever that is. And of course here it's grunts, so you know, grunts tend to die in a couple of hits, but one headshot is what you need. That grunt decided to commit suicide by throwing a grenade at the wall. Thank you very much, little grunt dude. And we're basically going to head to what I think is the very challenging part of this whole run, because this corridor is very long. Because when it comes to like long corridors, the elites decide to actually like really go to that shield over there. They decide to like really retreat like rapidly back to that shield. So this is really insane, because the red elite decided to hide behind the cover, not pay attention to me at all when I come up behind him, and assassinate him in the process. So yeah, when you decide to get to like long corridors like that, or like corridors in general, you want to make sure you want to either aggro the elites so much that they come at you, or plan a route ahead to see if you can try and get around the elite somehow, or again just try and aggro him as much as you can. Luckily for me, he decided to go behind the shield, and I managed to assassinate him in the process of doing it. And again like this, a long corridor again. And again, Marines decide to go flying because of all the explosions that happen. So now we're going to move on into the tunnels. And what I decided to do here was head straight for the right. As soon as you see the open gate to go in, I decided to head to the right, because I wanted to see if I can try and get behind all the enemies. See if I can actually try and do that. So what I decided to do was go behind one of the elites here, assassinate him, and now I'm just waiting for grunts to either pop up their heads or just try and put as many shots as I can so they explode all the other elites and all the other grunts that are all over the place. So here I'm a bit hesitant. I don't know which grunt to actually kill, so I decided to kill that one. But luckily that grunt also killed a red elite and another elite as well, so that was really, really handy. And now this elite decided to give me a hug and pretty much take down most of my shields and health. You will be very, very close to death most of the time. So look, this grunt decides to walk across the elite's body, and when the elite was like shooting as like they normally do on CE, is that they shoot their last shots like in the floor, and it decided to kill the grunt as well. So I was very lucky that I've managed to get 1 bar of health left and no shields at all, but luckily there was a health pack there. So now what I'm doing here is aggroing this elite, because the corridor is so long he can actually just pick me off really easily, because they tear your shields to bits, these elites and grunts. They really, really do. So now I'm in a melee battle with this elite, doing a very good job of it, and of course that he has the corridor to himself, he decides to back up and really drill some shots into me. So now I'm like aggroing him again, and now I'm basically going to finish him off, because he decided to just retreat all the time, and I don't want that. I don't want the guy to retreat, I just want him to die. So now this next section, you can either take, you can either take him out, this elite at the end of the corridor, and all these other grunts, but as there's like scripted explosions that will literally take down your shields, I just found it best to actually just run. There are scripted explosions that you can't prevent, so they will literally tear your shields to shreds. And of course those grunts somehow decide to shoot through the door and shoot at me. So that really scared me a bit. So now we move on to the last section of this entire Pillar of Autumn run. And what I've decided to do was come up to this door here that has the 2 boxes, because that provides you a lot of cover from anything like grenades or explosions. Well, not really explosions as much, but it really does help you in a way. So what I decided to do here is just try and pick off as many grunts as I can, so that they take out everything else next to them. And you don't want to rush. You really don't want to rush doing LASO, because you can either mess up, or, well, if you mess up you can just do save and quit and then just do like a much more better optimized route than before, which I've decided to do a lot in Pillar of Autumn when I was doing this run. But yeah, you just want to basically take your time, scope out like the route ahead, scope out enemies, so when you do it next time you know how to actually approach the mission and basically get to the end of LASO, and you'll feel really, really good about yourself. Pretty much, that's how I felt, because when I was doing this LASO guide I was like, man, am I actually going to be able to do this? And I've managed to do it somehow, and I'm like very, very happy. So you saw me before, I picked up 2 grenades before, and now I'm just going to watch the carnage unfold with a whole ton of explosions in the corridor, with like plasma grenades that are on the floor when I think elites or grunts drop them. There's like plasma grenades on the floor when they die as well. So that causes a whole like chain reaction of explosions, which is what you want to be careful of the most, is explosions. Like enemies, yeah, you can be cautious, but with explosions you want to be as cautious as you can, even with grunts. So this is the final bit with all the grenades. This is the final bit now. So now what I'm basically doing is like poking my head in and out of this tunnel, throwing grenades so they get rid of all the grunts and enemies, so that causes a chain reaction of explosions. So what happens here is when you actually hear Cortana say there's a last lifeboat there, basically that's your cue to go to the end of the mission and just pretty much complete Pillar of Autumn. So if you haven't got this achievement already, you'll get no pain no gain for doing a LASO mission with all the playlist skulls. And here's the final stats. I managed to do it in under 14 minutes, sorry. And, well, under 15 minutes. And here's the kills, all the everything else. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Here's the previous video of Elder Scrolls Online. Take care and join me again for another LASO guide.